How does refusing to let your husband attend a New Year's party, just because your ex will be there, become the moment your marriage ends in public? What starts as a simple boundary quickly unravels, until the arrival of legal documents proves he was listening to everything I tried to deny. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and disappointment. I stood at the granite counter, scrolling through my phone, while David loaded the dishwasher with his usual methodical precision. Each plate clinked softly as he arranged them in perfect rows, the sound grating against my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. "So, about New Year's," I said, not looking up from Instagram. Marina had posted another photo from her promotion party, champagne glass raised, surrounded by attractive people who looked like they actually enjoyed their lives. "I think it's better if you don't come." The clinking stopped. I could feel David's eyes on me, but I kept scrolling, double-tapping a photo of someone's vacation in Cabo. "What do you mean?" His voice was careful, measured, the same tone he used when Eva had nightmares and needed gentle coaxing back to sleep. "It's just, Zane's going to be there." I finally looked up, giving him what I hoped was an understanding smile. "You know how weird things get when exes are around. I just want to avoid any drama." David straightened slowly, a dinner plate still in his hands. At 33, he had the kind of face that belonged in a Norman Rockwell painting. Honest, open, completely incapable of deception. Right now, that face looked like I'd slapped it. "Isolde, we're married. I'm your husband, not some random guy you're dating." "I know that." I set my phone down with more force than necessary. "But you have to understand, Zane and I have history. It's complicated." "What's complicated about it? You chose me. We have a daughter together. We have a life." The way he said "we" made something twist uncomfortably in my stomach. I pushed the feeling away and focused on the familiar irritation instead. This was exactly why I needed space. David's constant need to make everything about us, about our little domestic bubble that felt more like a prison every day. "David, you're being insecure. You should trust me." "This isn't about trust. This is about respect. You're asking me to stay home on New Year's Eve because your ex-boyfriend is going to be at a party. How is that supposed to make me feel?" I sighed, the sound echoing through our pristine kitchen with its subway tiles and farmhouse sink. All David's choices, all safe and boring, and exactly what everyone expected. "You're overthinking this. It's just one night." One night that happens to be one of the most important nights of the year. The night we're supposed to celebrate together, as a family. Ava will be asleep anyway. She won't even know. David set the plate down so carefully, it barely made a sound, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. This isn't about Eva. This is about us. My phone buzzed. A text from Mira, my younger sister. "Girl, tell me you're not letting David guilt trip you into missing Marina's party. You need this night out. He's being clingy again." I glanced at the message and felt a surge of validation. At least someone understood what I was dealing with. "Look," I said, softening my tone slightly. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just think it would be easier for everyone if you stayed home. You don't even like parties anyway." "I like spending time with my wife." The simple statement hung between us like an accusation. I felt cornered, defensive, the way I always did when David got like this, all wounded and martyred, making me feel guilty for wanting something for myself. "Fine," I said, grabbing my phone. "Be dramatic about it, but I'm going either way." I started to walk past him toward the stairs, but his voice stopped me. "When did I become the enemy, Isolde?" I turned back, ready with a sharp response, but something in his expression made the words stick in my throat. He looked genuinely confused, like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "You're not the enemy," I said finally. "You don't understand what it's like to feel trapped." "Trapped?" The word came out like he was tasting something bitter. "Is that what our marriage is to you? A trap?" Before I could answer, Eva's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Mommy, Daddy, can someone help me with my puzzle?" "Coming, sweetheart," David called back, but his eyes never left mine. I watched him walk away, his shoulders set in that particular way that meant he was hurt, but trying not to show it. The same way he'd looked when I'd forgotten our anniversary dinner last month, or when I'd snapped at him in front of his mother at Thanksgiving. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mira. "You deserve to have fun. Don't let him make you feel bad for living your life." I screenshot the message and posted it to my Instagram story with the caption, "Choosing yourself in 2024. The likes started coming immediately. Marina, Mira, my work friends, all the people who understood that sometimes you had to put yourself first. Upstairs, I could hear David's patient voice helping Eva with her puzzle, the same gentle tone he'd used with me just minutes ago. I ignored the pang of something that might have been guilt and focused on the validation flowing through my phone instead. Later that night, after Eva was asleep and David had retreated to his home office to grade papers, I sat in our bedroom, scrolling through party planning messages from Marina. The New Year's Eve bash at the downtown bistro was going to be incredible. All our old friends from college, people who'd actually made something of themselves, people who understood that life was meant to be lived. And yes, Zane would be there. Zane with his easy smile and his stories about traveling for work, about the startup he was launching, about all the exciting things happening in his life. The kind of excitement that had been missing from mine for years. I wasn't planning anything. I just wanted to feel alive again, to remember what it was like to be Isolde Merrin instead of just David's wife and Eva's mother. Was that really so wrong? My phone lit up with a calendar notification. Wedding anniversary dinner, January 15th. The reminder David had set up months ago, the same way he set up reminders for Eva's doctor appointments and parent-teacher conferences and all the other mundane details of our carefully organized life. I stared at the notification for a long moment, then swiped it away. In the morning, I'd noticed that David had quietly deleted the reminder entirely. The downtown bistro buzzed with the kind of energy I'd forgotten existed. String lights cast a warm glow over exposed brick walls, and the air hummed with laughter and conversation and the promise of new beginnings. I'd spent 2 hours getting ready, choosing a black dress that hugged in all the right places and made me feel like the person I used to be before mortgage payments and school pickup schedules. "Isolde." Marina appeared at my side with 2 champagne glasses, her red hair cascading over her shoulders in perfect waves. "You look absolutely stunning. I'm so proud of you for coming." "Thanks for organizing this," I said, accepting the glass and taking a sip. The bubbles tickled my throat, and I felt something inside me relax for the first time in weeks. This is exactly what I needed. "Where's David?" she asked, scanning the crowd. "Home with Eva. You know how he is about parties." Marina's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something that might have been disapproval. "Right. Well, his loss. Come on, everyone's dying to see you." She led me through the crowd, stopping every few feet to hug old friends and introduce me to new ones. I felt like I was floating, buoyed by compliments and attention, and the intoxicating feeling of being seen as myself rather than half of a couple. "Isolde Merrin," a familiar voice said behind me. "I was hoping you'd show up." I turned to find Zane Rutherford smiling at me, looking exactly the same as he had in college, but somehow better, more confident, more polished. His dark hair was perfectly tousled, and his blue eyes held the same mischievous glint that had gotten us both into trouble more than once. "Zane," I said, hoping my voice sounded casual. "I heard you were back in town." "Just for a few weeks. Business meetings. You know how it is." He stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of his cologne, something expensive and sophisticated that made my head spin slightly. "You look incredible." "Thank you." I felt heat creep up my neck and took another sip of champagne to cover my embarrassment. "So where's the husband? David, right?" "He's home." New Year's Eve isn't really his thing. Zane's eyebrows rose slightly. Really? If I were married to you, I wouldn't let you out of my sight at a party like this. The comment sent a thrill through me that I tried to ignore. He trusts me. Smart man. Zane's smile widened. Dance? Before I could think of a reason to say no, he was leading me onto the makeshift dance floor. The music was loud enough to drown out the voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like David, asking if this was really a good idea. My phone buzzed against my clutch. A text from David. Hope you're having fun. Ever asked if you were coming home to kiss her goodnight? I showed the message to Marina, who'd appeared beside us with fresh drinks. God, he's so clingy, she said, rolling her eyes. Can't you have one night without him checking up on you? He's just worried about Eva, I said, but even as I spoke the words, they felt hollow. David had put Eva to bed thousands of times. He didn't need me for that. Another buzz. Just want to make sure you got there safely. Love you. Seriously? Marina grabbed my phone before I could stop her. This is ridiculous. You're a grown woman, not a teenager with a curfew. She was right, of course. I was 31 years old, successful in my own right, perfectly capable of taking care of myself. The constant checking in felt suffocating, like David couldn't trust me to make it through one evening without his supervision. He's just being protective, I said, but the words lacked conviction. Protective or controlling? Zane asked, appearing at my elbow with another champagne glass. There's a difference. I accepted the drink gratefully, using the moment to gather my thoughts. He's not controlling. He's just intense about family stuff. Family stuff like letting his wife have a social life. The question hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. When was the last time I'd gone out without David? When was the last time I'd done anything spontaneous or exciting or just for me? My phone buzzed again. This time it was a FaceTime call from Eva, David's face visible in the corner of the screen. Mummy. Eva's voice was bright and happy despite the late hour. Daddy and I made cookies. Look. She held up a misshapen sugar cookie decorated with too much frosting and rainbow sprinkles. That's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, stepping away from the noise of the party. You should be in bed, though. Daddy said I could stay up a little longer since it's New Year's Eve. Are you having fun at your party? Yes, baby. Mummy's having a good time. When are you coming home? The innocent question felt like a weight on my chest. I don't know yet. Soon. Okay, I love you, Mummy. I love you too. David's face appeared on the screen as Eva ran off to show her cookies to someone else. Sorry to bother you, he said quietly. She really wanted to show you what she made. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. The call had shattered the spell of the evening, reminding me of all the reasons I'd wanted to escape in the first place. You look beautiful, David said, and there was something in his voice that made my stomach twist with guilt. Thank you. I should go. The music's really loud. Of course. Have fun. Be safe. I ended the call and rejoined the group, but something had shifted. The champagne tasted flat, and Zane's flirting felt less thrilling and more complicated. Everything okay? He asked, his hand finding the small of my back as he guided me back to our table. Fine, just family stuff. You know, he said, leaning closer so his breath tickled my ear. I always wondered what would have happened if we'd stayed together, if you hadn't chosen the safe option. The words sent electricity through me, dangerous and intoxicating. Zane. I'm not saying anything inappropriate, he said quickly. I just think you deserve someone who appreciates how amazing you are. Someone who encourages you to shine instead of trying to dim your light. Before I could respond, Marina appeared with her phone. Group selfie, she announced. We need to document this incredible night. She pulled us all together, and I found myself pressed against Zane's side, his arm around my waist, his hand resting on my hip. The camera flashed, capturing the moment forever. Perfect, Marina said, immediately posting the photo to Instagram. This is going everywhere. New year, new me. living my best life, all's on friends forever. My phone started buzzing with notifications, likes, comments, tags. The validation felt like a drug, each heart emoji and fire emoji feeding something hungry inside me that I'd forgotten existed. As midnight approached, the energy in the room became electric. Everyone gathered around the big screen showing the countdown from Times Square. Champagne glasses raised, voices joining together in anticipation. 10, 9, 8. I found myself standing next to Zayn, our shoulders touching, the heat from his body warming my skin. 7, 6, 5. He turned to look at me, his eyes intense and focused, and I felt like I was 22 again, wild and free and full of possibilities. 4, 3, 2. The room erupted in cheers and the sound of champagne corks popping. Around us, couples kissed and friends hugged, and for a moment I felt suspended between two worlds. The safe, predictable life I'd built with David, and the exciting, uncertain path I'd abandoned for security. "Happy New Year, Isolde," Zayn said softly, and before I could think or protest or remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea, he leaned in and kissed my cheek, his lips lingering just a moment too long to be completely innocent. The camera flashes went off around us, capturing the moment from every angle. Later, I would see the photos and realize how they looked. My hand on his shoulder, his face close to mine, both of us glowing with champagne and possibility, and something that definitely wasn't just friendship. But in that moment, all I could think about was how alive I felt, how seen and appreciated and desired. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me the way Zayn was looking at me, like I was fascinating and beautiful and worth pursuing. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Happy New Year, love. Hope 2024 brings you everything you're looking for." The message should have made me smile. Instead, it made me feel hollow, like I was reading words meant for someone else entirely. Someone who wanted the same things David wanted. Someone who found joy in quiet Sunday mornings and family game nights and the comfortable routine of a life well lived. I looked around the party, at Marina dancing on a table, at Zayn telling animated stories to a group of fascinated listeners, at all the beautiful, successful, exciting people who'd managed to build lives that looked like adventures rather than obligations. "You okay?" Zayn asked, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. "Perfect," I said, accepting the drink and pushing thoughts of David and Eva and responsibility as far away as possible. Absolutely perfect. It was after 2 in the morning when I finally made it home, my heels dangling from my fingers, my head spinning with champagne and compliments and the lingering scent of Zayn's cologne. The house was dark except for the porch light David had left on for me, and I fumbled with my keys, trying to be quiet. The door opened before I could get my key in the lock. David stood there in his pajamas, his hair messy from sleep, his eyes taking in my disheveled appearance with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Did I wake you?" I whispered. "No," he said quietly. "I was waiting up." "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to make sure you got home safely." There was something in his voice, not anger exactly, but something deeper and more complicated. I followed him into the kitchen, where he'd left a glass of water and 2 aspirin on the counter. "Thoughtful," I said, downing both pills. "Did you have fun?" The simple question felt loaded with landmines. "Yes, it was good to see everyone." David nodded, his eyes studying my face in the dim light. "Marina posted some photos. You looked like you were having a good time." My stomach dropped. "You were stalking my social media." "I wasn't stalking anything. The photos showed up in my feed because Marina tagged you." I tried to remember what had been posted, but the evening was a blur of champagne and laughter and Zayn's hand on my back. They were just party photos. "I know." David's voice was still quiet, still careful. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. I don't want to disturb you." "David, you don't have to." "It's fine. Get some rest." He kissed my forehead gently, the same way he kissed Eva goodnight, and disappeared upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen, still wearing my party dress, feeling like a stranger in my own home. My phone buzzed with a text from Zane. "Had fun tonight. Hope we can do it again soon." The message preview lit up my screen just as I heard David's footsteps overhead, moving toward the guest room. I quickly deleted the notification and headed upstairs, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed, and there was no going back to the way things were before. The morning came too early and too bright. I woke up alone in our king-sized bed, my head pounding and my mouth tasting like regret mixed with champagne. The space where David usually slept was cold and untouched, the pillows still perfectly arranged. I stumbled to the bathroom and caught sight of myself in the mirror. My makeup was smeared, my hair looked like I'd been through a wind tunnel, and there was a champagne stain on my dress that I didn't remember getting. I looked exactly like what I was, a married woman who'd stayed out too late at a party with her ex-boyfriend. The shower helped wash away the physical evidence of the night, but it couldn't touch the knot of anxiety that had settled in my stomach. I kept replaying moments from the party, Zane's hand on my back, the way he'd looked at me during the countdown, the photos that Marina had posted for the entire world to see. Downstairs, I found David in the kitchen, making pancakes, while Eva sat at the counter, still in her pajamas, swinging her legs and chattering about the cookies they'd made the night before. "Mommy," she squealed when she saw me, "you're awake. Daddy made special New Year pancakes with chocolate chips." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head and avoiding David's eyes. "Did you have fun at your party?" Eva asked innocently. "Yes, baby. It was nice to see my old friends. Daddy showed me the pictures on his phone. You looked really pretty." My blood ran cold. "Pictures?" David finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Marina tagged you in several posts. They came up in my notifications." "Oh, right." He set a plate of pancakes in front of me, and I noticed he'd arranged them in a perfect stack with butter and syrup on the side, exactly the way I liked them. The thoughtfulness made me feel worse somehow. "Who was that man you were standing next to?" Eva asked, cutting into her pancakes with intense concentration. "Just an old friend from college, sweetheart. His name is Zane." "He looked nice. Why didn't Daddy come to the party?" The innocent question felt like an accusation. "Daddy stayed home to take care of you." "But I was sleeping. He could have come after I went to bed." Out of the mouths of babes, I glanced at David, who was cleaning the griddle with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. His movements were careful, controlled, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Sometimes grown-ups need different kinds of fun," I said finally. "Like how I like cartoons but you like boring shows. Something like that." Eva seemed satisfied with this explanation and returned to her pancakes. David continued cleaning, saying nothing. The silence stretched between us like a chasm, filled with all the things we weren't saying. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "OMG, last night was amazing. Already planning the next one. You and Zane were so cute together, like old times." I quickly turned my phone face down, but not before David's eyes flicked toward it. He'd always been observant, quietly taking in details that other people missed. It was what made him a good teacher, and apparently what was making this morning so uncomfortable. "I should get dressed," I said, standing abruptly. "I promised I'd take Eva to the park today." "Actually," David said quietly, "I was thinking we could all go together. Family time." The suggestion should have sounded nice. Instead, it felt like surveillance. "That's okay. You probably have papers to grade or something." "It's New Year's Day. I can take a break from work." There was something in his tone that made me look at him more closely. His face was calm, but his eyes held a sharpness I wasn't used to seeing. Like he was studying me, cataloguing details for some purpose I couldn't understand. "Fine," I said. "Family time it is." But as I headed upstairs to get dressed, I couldn't shake the feeling that David was seeing everything. The way I'd flinched when Eva asked about Zane, the way I'd hidden my phone, the way I couldn't quite meet his eyes. My phone rang as I was pulling on jeans. Lorna's name appeared on the screen, and I considered letting it go to voicemail. David's mother had never been my biggest fan, and I wasn't in the mood for her particular brand of passive-aggressive concern. "Hello, Lorna." "Isolde, dear, I hope you had a lovely New Year's Eve." Her tone was pleasant enough, but I could hear the edge underneath. "It was nice, thank you. I saw some photos online. You looked like you were enjoying yourself." Of course she'd seen them. David's entire family was connected on social media, a web of aunts and cousins and family friends who shared everything and commented on everyone's business. It was good to catch up with old friends. "Yes, I'm sure it was. Is David there? I'd like to speak with him." I handed the phone to David, who'd appeared in the doorway with Eva trailing behind him. I watched his face as he listened to whatever his mother was saying, saw the way his jaw tightened slightly. "I understand, Mom," he said finally. "We'll talk later." He handed the phone back to me, but Lorna had already hung up. "What did she want?" I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew. "She's concerned about us, about our family." "Our family is fine." David looked at me for a long moment. "Is it?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to face. Eva saved me from having to answer by tugging on David's hand. "Can we go to the park now? I want to try the big slide." "Of course, sweetheart," David said, his voice instantly warming. "Let's get your coat." At the park, I watched David push Eva on the swings while I sat on a bench, scrolling through my phone. The photos from the night before had gotten dozens of likes and comments. "You look amazing." "So fun." "Love seeing you happy." But there were other comments too, ones that made my stomach clench. "Where's David? Trouble in paradise?" "Some people don't know how good they have it." I was about to put my phone away when a new text came in from Zane. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Would love to grab coffee sometime this week and catch up properly." My heart started racing. I glanced toward the playground, where David was now helping Eva across the monkey bars, his full attention focused on our daughter. He looked so normal, so steady and reliable and good. The kind of man any reasonable woman would be grateful to have. So why did I feel like I was suffocating? I deleted Zane's message without responding, but the damage was done. The words were burned into my memory, along with the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd made me feel alive and desired and interesting. "Mommy!" Eva called from the top of the slide. "Watch me!" I looked up just in time to see her come down the big slide, her face bright with joy and accomplishment. David was waiting at the bottom to catch her, his arms open, his smile genuine and proud. "Did you see me, Mommy?" "I saw you, baby. You're so brave." But even as I smiled and clapped and played the part of the devoted mother, part of me was still thinking about Zane's text, about the coffee invitation, about all the roads not taken, and the life I might have had if I'd made different choices. That evening, after Eva was in bed, David and I sat in the living room pretending to watch a movie. But I could feel his eyes on me, studying my face in the flickering light from the television. Every time my phone buzzed, his attention sharpened, and I found myself holding my breath. "Isolde," he said during a commercial break, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About last night, about us, about what's happening to our marriage." I felt panic rise in my throat. "Nothing's happening to our marriage. I went to a party. That's not a crime." "You're right. Going to a party isn't a crime. But lying to your husband is a problem. Hiding things is a problem. Making me feel like I'm the enemy for wanting to spend time with my wife is a problem." "I'm not lying about anything." "Then tell me about Zane." The name hung between us like a bomb waiting to explode. "What about him?" "Tell me why you really didn't want me at the party. Tell me why you've been checking your phone every 5 minutes since you got home. Tell me why you look guilty every time Eva mentions the photos." I stared at him, this man I'd married 7 years ago, This good, decent person who'd never done anything but love me and try to build a life with me. He deserved the truth. He deserved honesty and respect and a wife who chose him every single day. Instead, I heard myself say, "You're being paranoid, David. And frankly, it's not attractive." Something shifted in his expression. A door closing, a light going out. "I see." He stood up and headed toward the stairs, moving with the same quiet dignity he'd shown the night before. "Where are you going?" "To bed, in the guest room. I think we both need some space to figure out what we want." After he left, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the muted television and trying to convince myself that I'd done nothing wrong. So what if Zane had texted me? So what if we'd taken some photos together? I was allowed to have friends. I was allowed to have a social life. But deep down, I knew David was right. Something was happening to our marriage, something that had started long before last night's party. And instead of fighting for what we'd built together, I was letting it crumble while I chased the ghost of who I used to be. My phone buzzed with another text from Zane. "Hope I didn't get you in trouble with the husband." That wasn't my intention, but I meant what I said about coffee. It would be good to catch up. This time, instead of deleting the message, I found myself typing back, "Coffee sounds nice. When were you thinking?" The response came immediately. "Tomorrow. There's a great little place downtown, very discreet." I stared at the word discreet for a long time, understanding exactly what it implied. This wasn't just about catching up with an old friend. This was about crossing lines that, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed. Upstairs, I could hear David moving around in the guest room, probably grading papers or reading, doing all the normal things that normal husbands did, being the steady, reliable man I'd married. I typed back, "Tomorrow works. Send me the address." And with that simple message, I stepped over the line that would change everything. The coffee shop was exactly the kind of place Zane would choose. Trendy, expensive, filled with the sort of people who worked in marketing and tech and other industries that sounded impressive at cocktail parties. I arrived 15 minutes late, a habit I developed to avoid looking too eager, and found him at a corner table with 2 artisanal lattes already waiting. "You came," he said, standing to hug me. The embrace lasted a moment too long, his hands lingering on my back in a way that made my pulse quicken. "I said I would." "I know, but I thought you might change your mind. Guilty conscience and all that." The comment stung because it was true. I'd spent the morning making elaborate excuses to David about errands I needed to run, watching his face for signs of suspicion. He'd simply nodded and said he'd pick Eva up from her playdate, the same way he always did when I needed time for myself. "I don't have anything to feel guilty about," I said, sliding into the chair across from Zane. "We're just having coffee." "Of course." His smile suggested he knew better. "So how are you? Really?" "I'm fine. Good. Great, actually." "Are you?" He leaned forward, his blue eyes intense and focused entirely on me. "Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who's been sleepwalking through her life." The observation hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. "That's not true." "When was the last time you did something just for you? Something that made you feel alive?" I thought about it and realized I couldn't remember. Every decision I made was filtered through Eva's needs, David's preferences, our family's schedule. Even my job felt like an extension of my domestic responsibilities. Steady, practical, safe. "See?" Zane said, reading my expression. "You can't even answer the question." "I have responsibilities. A family." "I'm not saying you should abandon your family. I'm saying you shouldn't abandon yourself." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His skin was warm, his touch electric in a way that David's hadn't been in years. "You used to be fearless," he continued. "Remember that weekend we drove to the coast without telling anyone? Remember how you used to talk about traveling the world, starting your own business, making a difference?" I did remember. I remembered the girl I used to be, full of dreams and ambition, and the absolute certainty that life was meant to be an adventure. When had I become so small, so careful, so afraid of taking risks? That was a long time ago. It doesn't have to be. You're 31, Isolde. You have decades of life ahead of you. Don't you want them to count for something? My phone buzzed with a text from David. Picked up ever. We're at the grocery store. Need anything? The mundane message felt like a splash of cold water. While I was sitting here with my ex-boyfriend talking about lost dreams, my husband was handling the practical details of our life, taking care of our daughter, being the responsible adult. I should go, I said, starting to stand. Wait. Zane's hand tightened on mine. I have a proposition for you. Zane, just hear me out. I'm starting a new marketing firm. I need someone with your skills, your intelligence, your drive. It would mean travel, excitement, the chance to build something real, and it would mean working with me. The offer hung between us like forbidden fruit. Everything I'd been missing, everything I'd given up, wrapped in a pretty package and offered by the man who'd once represented all my wildest possibilities. I can't. I have Eva and David and... You have one life, Isolde. One chance to be the person you were meant to be. Don't waste it playing it safe. I pulled my hand away and grabbed my purse. I really do have to go. Think about it, he called as I headed for the door. The offer stands. I drove home in a daze, Zane's words echoing in my head. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd almost convinced myself that nothing had happened, that it had been just coffee with an old friend, nothing more. But when I walked into the kitchen and saw David unpacking groceries while Eva colored at the table, I felt like I was looking at my life through glass, close enough to touch, but somehow separate from it all. How are your errands? David asked without looking up. Fine, boring. Mommy, look what I drew. Eva held up a picture of our family standing in front of our house. 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, the kind of innocent art that usually made me smile. Today, it made me feel trapped. The next morning at work, I couldn't concentrate. I sat through meetings thinking about Zane's offer, about the life I might have had, about the woman I used to be before I became half of a couple and a third of a family. Earth to Isolde, said Jessica, one of my co-workers, sliding into the chair next to mine in the break room. You look like you're a million miles away. Just tired. Long weekend. I saw the photos from Marina's party. Looked like fun. Very glamorous. It was nice to get out. I bet. That guy you were with looked interesting. Old boyfriend? The question made my stomach clench. Just a friend from college. Sure he is. Jessica grinned knowingly. Lucky you, having friends who look like that. My college friends all got fat and boring. He's just a friend, I repeated, but the words felt hollow. If you say so. But if I were you, I'd be careful. Office gossip travels fast, and you know how people talk about married women who party without their husbands. The warning sent a chill through me. What do you mean? Nothing specific, just that people notice things, especially when photos end up on social media. I spent the rest of the day paranoid that everyone was looking at me differently, whispering about me, judging my choices. By lunchtime, I was so anxious that I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. That's when I ran into Tom Bradley, David's colleague from the high school where he taught. Isolde, how are you? Tom's greeting was friendly enough, but there was something in his eyes that made me uncomfortable. I'm well, thanks. How's Sarah? She's good. We actually saw some photos of you from New Year's Eve. Looked like quite a party. My heart started racing. Just a small gathering with old friends. Right. Sarah was wondering where David was. She said she didn't see him in any of the pictures. He stayed home with Eva. Of course. Tom's smile didn't reach his eyes. Well, tell him I said hello. And maybe next time he can get a babysitter and join you. Married couples should stick together, don't you think? The comment felt like a slap. I mumbled something about being late for a meeting and hurried back to the office. But I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was talking about me, speculating about my marriage, drawing conclusions from a few innocent photos. That evening, I found David in his home office, grading papers with his usual methodical precision. He looked up when I entered, and I noticed he closed his laptop screen slightly, as if he didn't want me to see what he was working on. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine. Yours?" "Good. Eva's soccer coach called. Practice starts next week." "Right. I'll put it on the calendar." We went through the motions of normal conversation, but underneath it all was a current of tension that hadn't been there before New Year's Eve. I kept waiting for him to ask about my coffee with Zane, to confront me about the photos, to demand answers to the questions I could see in his eyes. Instead, he just went back to his grading, and I went upstairs to check on Eva. I found her in her room, working on another drawing. This one was different from the happy family portrait she'd shown me the day before. In this picture, the 3 stick figures were spread across the page, one on each side, and one small figure in the middle, arms stretched toward both. "What's this one, sweetheart?" "It's us," she said matter-of-factly, "but you and Daddy are far apart because you're mad at each other." The innocent observation hit me like a physical blow. "We're not mad at each other, baby." "Yes, you are. You don't talk at dinner anymore, and Daddy sleeps in the other room, and you both look sad all the time." I sat down on her bed, pulling her close. "Sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other, and it definitely doesn't mean we don't love you." "Are you going to get divorced like Tommy's parents?" The question made my throat tight. "No, sweetheart. Daddy and I are just figuring some things out." But even as I said the words, I wondered if they were true. Something was breaking between David and me, something that might be too damaged to repair. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I wanted to fix it. Later that night, after Eva was asleep, I found myself staring at my phone, reading and rereading Zane's job offer. The opportunity he was describing sounded like everything I'd given up. Travel, excitement, the chance to build something meaningful with someone who saw my potential instead of just my domestic utility. I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice David standing in the doorway until he spoke. "Working late?" I quickly closed my phone. "Just checking emails." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on my face in a way that made me feel exposed. "I'm going to bed. Try not to stay up too late." "David," I called as he turned to leave. "Yes?" "Are we okay? You and me?" He was quiet for so long that I thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and sad. "I don't know, Isolde. Are we?" The question hung in the air long after he'd gone upstairs, and I realized I didn't know the answer. 3 weeks passed in tense limbo. David slept in the guest room, polite and distant, while I kept meeting Zane for coffee, pretending it meant nothing as my pulse betrayed me. Eva absorbed the poison, turning clingy, anxious, and sharp with questions about Daddy's sadness. At a family barbecue, warmth almost fooled me into believing we could recover. Until my phone buzzed and Marina called, blurting out Zane's job offer like a celebration. Across the kitchen table, David's face changed from hope to ice. "Job offer?" he asked. I fumbled, minimized, lied. He didn't shout. He just drew the line. Family or fantasy. Then he walked away, leaving my silence to answer. The papers arrived on a Tuesday in February, the courier's pity hidden behind perfect manners. I stood in my bathrobe, already knowing what the envelope held. David had moved out quietly, packing while Eva was away, telling me all contact would go through lawyers. I'd laughed, David, the apologizer. Lawyering up? Then I opened the petition and the attachments, texts with Zane, New Year's photos, highlighted bank withdrawals, even my posts analyzed like evidence. Worst were the home security audio files. My own voice, cold and dismissive. Patricia said it was airtight, top firm, primary custody. I finally understood. David had been ahead for months.